come out and play and the rain doesn't come tumbling down.
Yeah, it's been raining the last few days here. Welcome to Emerging. That's the title of this exhibition by myself, Chris Wilson at Wilson Live Sculpture. I walked these trails last night and I heard this barking, strange barking sound. And I show you what it is. This is a nice little private pond behind these people's home. I just came from the wild part of the north end of the Spring Island. And you look in this tree here closely, I'll focus in on it. You can see it's a black crowned night heron. Kind of a stocky little heron. and they like to roost in trees, and they were saying goodnight to each other. They were communicating, kind of barking back and forth. I think I have that on film, so I'll try to play that, although you can't see him because it's dark. Where'd he go? There he is. Homes are beautifully intertwined with nature here. You barely notice them. This is the state tree of South Carolina. It's the palmetto. There's a few different kinds of palmettos. I believe this is the cabbage palmetto. And you can see it has palm boots on the side of it. It has palm fronds and palm boots. And this is my focus on my artist in residency here in Spring Island, where I've developed a new medium using these boots and having wildlife emerging from it. So it's so inspirational here, watching wildlife. There's an egret rat back there. There's jumping fish. Watch, the whole video. You can see lots of remarkable wildlife. Eagles have flown right over my head. Here's an example of the palm boot. This one's not in good shape. I only get the ones that are hard. Of course, it's rained every day I've been here. You can hear the red snapper jump behind me. It's just so beautiful here. I hope you enjoy the video. I've been getting around by bicycle. They have some prescribed fires back here to control the vegetation. And this is another palmetto that's been burnt on the ground. So it's kind of a savanna prairie out here, which supports a lot of wildlife. I've seen over 50 species, some really good ones. Watch the whole video in my so you can see my art show and my artist talk and hear more about my inspiration. Enjoy. This is a private island. Welcome to Spring Island. This is where I did an artist in residence last spring, and I'm finishing up in this fall in October. I had a solo art show, and this island is so inspiring. It's the only of its kind along the Atlantic coast, where there's 400 people who have homes here, and a third of the island is left natural for wildlife. Yet it's carefully managed by an ornithologist and over 200 people working here. You can see Great Salt Pond behind me, where you can listen and actually see the red snapper and other fish jumping right out of the water. There are herons and egrets everywhere, bald eagles right over my head. Of course, it's rained every day I've been here this week, but I've still had great adventures, seeing lots of birds. Last April, I encountered a shark when I was kayaking, going right towards me, and I was literally kind of stuck. I couldn't turn around. No incident there, but a little closer call, or just over here on the bank, I was riding my bicycle, and a alligator was sunning itself there, and it didn't see me. I didn't have my mountain bike then. I borrowed a bicycle here, which had a kickstand, and I'm not used to a kickstand. So the whole thing, the bicycle fell, and it scared the alligator, which was literally like 15 feet from me. probably closer. It scared it so much that it jumped into the water, and someone said it was a 10-footer, and it looked much bigger than me, because just incredible wildlife here. It's just so inspirational as a wildlife artist. So I hope you can check out my full video where I do an artist talk, I show my solo show, and I show some inspiration from the island. Thanks a lot for following me, and enjoy. I just hiked this maritime forest in nearby Hunting Island, which is next to Spring Island, and it's high tide. I was out on the beach earlier walking over there. Look at that tide coming in. Look at all those downed trees. This is all the erosion that's happening. And the trees are being taken over by the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Really cool place. Usually there's lots more wildlife at high tide, and there was definitely back in the marshy area where I just was, and I was filming. But I gotta do this quickly because mosquitoes are in this forest and they're already on me. So enjoy. It's a beautiful overcast day. It's the first day it hasn't rained in 7 days. Come on in.
I'm just exploring.
Sure. I just set up this show and I'm taking a little video for my YouTube
great.
channel. This is called Emerging.
Emerging. Oh, really clever.
And who's the artist?
I'm the artist. I'm Chris. I'll be 1 second with the video. I'm almost done with the show. No, it's no problem. Feel free to take it.
Your video.
I do it all the time.
You're Chris Wilson.
Yes, sir.
Oh, artist in residence.
Yes, I did an artist in residence in the spring. I did the research 5 months ago in April. And so I've come back with, actually my newest body of work is these carved palm boots over here. And that's what's really inspired me. And I found these actually palm boots on the island. And I carved this emerging birds from them. Yes, the fronds. Yes.
That's gorgeous.
And that's a show. Thank you, the patrons of the arts, all the people here at Spring Island, Audrey Wagner, I don't know if Dr. Andy Jones.
He's not here.
He was very helpful and letting me see the specimens at the Nature Center and take measurements. I did my research in April, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my process, my inspiration, my concept, and the legacy of Spring Island. And it's an honor to be here. So thank you very much for coming. And by the way, I started seriously when I was 14. The first time I carved, I was 10 years old. I cut myself trying to get my merit badge in Boy Scouts, and I fainted in the summertime. So my best friend comes running over and thinks I'm dead. But later I had really good teachers in that program. I was at the Magnet School for the Arts. My mom had me tested. She was a teacher. My father was a tennis pro. So yeah, I grew up in Cincinnati and just very, very thankful for my mentors I've had because they were wildlife artists. One worked at the Cincinnati Zoo and really elevated my art because I was able to gain that knowledge of, understanding reference material. So by the time I was 14 or 15, I had plans to build an aviary in my parents' backyard. I got a variance because it was Marietta, Georgia, outside Atlanta. I had to go to court and the judges told duck jokes. But I used my birds for educational purposes. And I'll do a few visuals as I'm going here. Thank you, Audrey, for the wonderful title. The show is called Emerging. I consider myself emerging in many different ways as a human being, as an artist. My subject matter is emerging. The series is called Emerging. And life in general is kind of emerging. It's a struggle. And I want to use birds as an allegory for the human condition. So there's different levels or layers of meaning to this work. This body of work, most of the pieces are emerging. Try to go to some other pictures here. So I got to know Spring Island. Let's see. There I am last April. Thanks to Jim and Galen. I met them at SeaWee. Have you all been to SeaWee in Charleston? Raise your hands if you've been to the Southeastern Wildlife Expo. That's the biggest wildlife art show in the country. And but unfortunately during COVID, everything kind of shut down. And I was very thankful for Jim and Galen because they commissioned me to do a piece for their wonderful house. And it was bluebirds, which you have tons of bluebirds here. One of the biggest populations I understand in the eastern side of the country, which is incredible. So it's an honor, and Jim showed me around several years ago, and I came back multiple times to help him. He's a Renaissance man, and an artist. Many of you guys are artists here and really fascinating people. And I like to see, I like working with people like that. So I don't have a piece of the commission, but if you don't know Jim or Galen, see the bluebirds at their place. But I fell in love with the island back then, and I was like, this is a place I want to go back to. So when I heard about being an artist in residence coming here, Audrey invited me, and I was really, it was an honor. So thank you very much. I had a lot of experience on Cumberland Island. My ancestor William Bartram, you spoke of, he in 1774 he explored Cumberland Island and Savannah, in basically most of the Carolinas, Georgia, northern Florida during the 18th century. And Bartram was the first to describe the great blue heron, the piece I'm donating to the trust here, part of the legacy here. And
Bartram is considered America's first artist/naturalist. So it's kind of in my roots, learning I'm kind of a modern day Bartram. I'm going outside just like I'm here. My research is literally riding a bicycle, hiking, bird watching, collecting specimens, looking at things. Actually, I don't take anything live, but I took the palm fronds, and I found these palm fronds. And I came right during spring migration, so it was wonderful last spring. So these they're called palm boots from the palm tree. I guess there's different kinds. And I just had an idea that I could see something emerging coming out of them. And I don't know if you look in clouds and you have see things like animals and stuff like in clouds as you're driving or whatever. It's kind of fun, as artists we see things a little bit differently, and that's about like what I want to show with my work, just how we see things differently. And I'll show you some different works in this series.
So you had worked with the palm boots before?
No, and I've never seen anyone work with it before in a hyper-realistic, it's called New Realism style, where it's part surreal and part realistic. Let me go back and show you. Okay, well I saw lots of, when I was here last April, alligators and lots of great wildlife. In fact, I had a great story. The first time I came here, I borrowed a bicycle, and I didn't know how to use the kickstand, because I have a mountain bike and I'm not used to that. Anyway, it fell, and right around the Great Salt Pond, and this big alligator was right there, and it literally jumped in the water. And this was one of the big ones. It had to have been, I don't know, you guys know, the 12 or 15, it was huge.
10 feet.
Was it 10 feet? Okay, it appeared much bigger. I didn't bring this piece, but I'm carving one in bark.
Wow.
That's out of a piece of cottonwood bark. Oh yeah, there's an example. What I want pieces I've collected. Got a little bit wet since we've had so much rain. But I found you can carve it. It kind of has a grain like wood, but then it kind of doesn't. So, but it's hard enough. It takes detail. But I had to get really good pieces, so I was really picky. But I reinforced things with fiberglass and Bondo, and I made them really structurally sound. And that was really important for my works, because I want my work to last for generations. Go over and look at some other work. So the emerging concept came from, first I started this series 25 years ago. I was a professor of art at Kennesaw State University, and I did my thesis on William Bartram at Georgia State University, getting my master's, and I retraced lots of his footsteps. And that was very, very inspirational. That was almost spiritual, retracing the ancestor, seeing where he was, what he did. He described nature in his writings as very sublime. And he's inspired a lot of artists. He and his father collected species, plants, and then he drew specimens, and then he sent them back to patrons in England. I'm not an expert on the botany or anything like that, but my grandfather, my mom's side, related to Bartram, was a microbiologist, and he taught me to catch lizards at their lake house in Clinton, South Carolina, at Presbyterian College, where my parents met. And my other grandfather lived in New York City, and he was a professional artist. He was a graphic designer, designing the old wine bottles by hand, okay, before computers and all. So, and he showed me how, he brought me to the best museums in New York, and loved Picasso. He traveled the world with Bill Tilden, another, come from a tennis family. That was a different life. I used to teach tennis. So, basically, as an artist, you're first, in a nutshell, every day I do a post about art, and first you start off and you passionately create, and then you learn eventually how to master different skill of the medium you're using, and then you learn concepts, form, composition, and then you learn how to market your work, and then finally you leave your legacy. Okay, so that's what I'm going to kind of talk about today, and feel free to ask any questions as I'm going here. Try to show some different pictures. So Okay, going back to, a little bit back to this series, I was inspired by Michelangelo's work, particularly his Bound Slaves, which are at the Louvre. I saw that last summer there in Paris. And I wanted the subject matter contained to the material itself, in this case wood, not marble, but I've done stone and other materials. And I want them struggling, kind of emerging or struggling to get away from the material that they're carved from. And to me, that represents more the struggle of life, where animals are struggling for existence. And there's different, again, layers of meaning there. I'll show you some other examples in the series. Okay, talking about a little bit of technique. Since my visuals are out of order, this is not a PowerPoint or anything, so I'm going a little bit in different directions here, but I do drawings as well. This was my heron in the other room. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it helps to do a pen and ink drawing. It's a miniature study, much smaller than that. And the back of the palm fronds, this is carved from one piece. They kind of look ghostly. I'm trying to capture the spirit of the animal. Okay, so some of my work is more interpretive. You look at, some people might prefer abstract work. I like both. I like abstract work. I like realistic, hyper-realistic. I like expressionism. And so that's the back of this piece. And I just announced it, actually, Audrey announced it on Facebook that this is my new medium. So I've been working 5 months on this series with the palm fronds, or palm boots, and posted this piece, and it quickly sold with my collectors. I post every day. It's Wilson Wildlife Sculpture. That's my business name, because Chris Wilson is too popular a name. Okay, there's the piece with the pine heart, the other heron. We call that Georgia fatwood. And that wood itself is considered sacred to the Native Americans. They had the lighting of the fire, a ritual. The wood actually burns. It can burn underwater. It's amazing, amazing wood. It's what's left of a pine tree. And you'll find, like in a deciduous forest, in fact, I've seen species of pine heart here. There must have been old trees, old pine trees. They look like little hand grenades sometimes. Depends where you are. Or this big piece. And I'll show you how I work with it. Okay, this shows the techniques and process of the carving on the left, the texturing on the right, and you can see the texturing, of course, much larger, and how I did the head separate. In fact, I have a video here. The one on the bottom is textured. I'll seal the wood before I paint it. And then I went back and, see, I carved the eyes there. I went back and put glass eyes in. The eyes is very important to get accurate. So it's the soul of the animal. That's the spirit. You got to get the eyes right. Okay, here I am in my front yard, and I do use a chainsaw. I do have tool sponsors like Hart Tools, NSK America. I have a pretty good social media following. Everything's changed now. I started with doing slides and art shows and old-fashioned, the art world's changed. It's social media. I don't do the used to be a Chinese comedy. TikTok. I don't do TikTok, but I do Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So this will be on my YouTube channel. I do collect wood because I'm very material based. My professor in art school hated that. He said, always think about the concept first, Chris. Never mind the material. You can always get the material. But I can't work that way. I'm material based. I see things in the material, just like looking at the clouds. I will look at the material. I'll have pieces for years, and then I'll finally see a falcon or a swallow coming out of it. Here is an emerging ibis. I didn't have it for this show, but it shows how I'm attaching things. Just saw a few of those flying this morning, and then this island is so inspirational. This is how I carve the wood with a knife. Now I will use the knife mainly for separating the primary feathers there. You can see the separation and undercutting, but I'm a power tool carver. It's faster, Someone asked a question about a feather in there, and I did carve the feather. It was cutting. That was a good question, but I did have an accident with the power tool, and I couldn't carve. I came 2 millimeters from doing permanent damage in this left hand, so I couldn't carve, but I could carve that feather, and it's basically cutting. So that is the process of carving.
So do you use a Dremel? What like?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Dremel. I use Fordham flexible shaft grinders, and I'm sponsored by a company called NSK America, and they make, I use a tool called Espert 5000, and it runs to 50,000 RPM, has no vibration, so it's like basically like going to a dentist office.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a dream carving with something like that. It's an honor having a company sponsor me, because I, show how I use my tools in social media, and people then, So yeah, your island is so beautiful. So I got inspired by the island there. Everything was in bloom. It was right before Easter. And Andy let me borrow his cart. It was a great way to get the palm fronds. And he let me look at the specimens. So, and that's important for my work, to get measurements. And it's illegal to pick up feathers, or you have to have a license for that, or go to a nature center, or Andy's an ornithologist. He's he's able to do that. So that's an invaluable reference. I sketched every bird he had, basically. I took measurements. Very inspiring. But it's even more inspiring seeing him in life. There's an emerging quail, which I'm kind of known for doing bobwhite quail. If any of y'all carve and you're interested in doing this kind of thing, I have free videos on my YouTube channel, but I have comprehensive instructional videos on my website. And it features a bobwhite quail. I talk about how to carve it, how to texture it, and how to paint it. I also have one on creating a magnolia flower. Okay, so I talked about, that's Michelangelo's work, the Bound Slaves. And again, that struggle for life is something I find very interesting. My work is more a blend between art and science. And this is the NSK America Espert 500, what I call 5000. So there you go. There's the handpiece. I've got different handpieces on it. And that's the emerging pair of quail I just finished. And that's, again, showing more process. I left tool marks intentionally. Actually, I left the hand tool marks using a mallet and gouge, not my grinder marks. I ended up painting it. Another tool, the company that sponsors me, this is a great intro tool. You could pick something like this up for $70. It's battery operated, you can carve anywhere. You can do engraving with it. I don't want to be like an influencer here. So I do that on social media, okay? So I'm all transparent here. But I use diamond bits like this, or carbide bits, all different, really fine bits for the detail. I was commissioned to do this piece coming out of a block of wood. That is a California quail. We don't have those in the East here, but my collector played golf out in Palm Springs, and so fortunately I went to, of all places, the botanical gardens in Atlanta, Georgia, had the little California quail right there, and even had the little chicks following it. It was so cute. And this piece, I posted it 2 years ago, and it went viral. I never had a post go, but it got over 1 million likes, 60 million views, 4,000 comments, and it sold quickly. That's why I do social media. It's good advertising. It's free, and it shows the process, because people don't believe it's wood. Of course, now it's AI. People think, oh, it's AI, or something. Okay, this goes back in time quite a ways. I try to make my work very sustainable. So I use Tupelo gum for most of the realism, sometimes basswood. And Tupelo has a really tight grain. It doesn't check or crack when it dries, especially if you don't have the center or the core of the tree. So, and I actually traded a decoy for 2 truckloads of Tupelo wood back in the 1990s when these pictures were taken. And that wood still lasts to me today.
Were you a tennis instructor back then?
Yes, I taught tennis all through my different life. I played competitively, and I could never beat my dad though. He was
Oh.
really good.
Okay.
And I didn't reach. My brother played semi-professionally. I didn't reach that level, but I won the state championships a couple times. So yeah, early pictures, early work. Some of it a little bit interpretive. Actually, that was after art school and college, and I ended up working for some different sculptors at that time. I didn't really find my market. It took me a long time to get into CWE and shows like that. There's just kind of a circuit of shows for wildlife artists, Western artists, landscape artists. Just different genres of art, and it just takes a while to find that. But I love the natural finish work. Again, an emerging piece in a collection. Most all these pieces are sold. And the artist bought this at CWE. She was exhibiting, but this is, again, carved coming out of the bark. These are barn swallows, and it shows a little bit more process. All my work tells a story. I want it to talk about the interconnectedness of life. I want to show, sometimes I have insects in there. I show birds, habitat, not so much in this piece. I don't have too many habitats out there, but I want to show that all life is connected. I want people to appreciate that all life is, connected, and therefore will want to preserve it more. And that's my focus when I go to art shows. Is just even my social media post, I talk about like 3 billion, how many birds we've lost in my lifetime, okay? Or just important things about window collisions, or how what's happening with migration, dim the lights, turn them off, things like that. Okay, this is in the show, Emerging Cormorant, and I found this piece in a river. It's Pine Heart, but it was sculpted by the water, so it definitely. It told me I need to do a water bird, okay, but I did add the head and the breast, and I joined it, kind of merged the two. So the lines are very important. I think I drew this one too, yeah, I do pen and ink. I actually had little animals coming out of it at the top, very abstractly. And again, the drawing is only this big. I'm focusing on something super big. It brings out all my mistakes. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, if you can't tell. I work with a magnifying lens. It's a blend between art and science. It's really, got to get things accurate, in my opinion. This is one of my early pieces, Emerging Crow, and I brought this to the Easton Waterfowl Festival. It raises money for the Chesapeake Bay, and I was in a big armory, big room, and at the end of the show, a man comes up. It looks like he's dressed in just rags. It looks like the janitor's coming at the end of the day, and he starts showing me pictures in his collection of artwork. And I was like, wow, wait a second, I studied with that fellow. That's Larry Barth, and that's so-and-so. I've seen this one in this magazine, that one, that cover. And it turns out he had one of the largest collections of wildlife art in the country. And he bought this piece, and he rotates it in at the Ella Sharp Museum of, I think it's Natural History in Jackson, Michigan.
Will you talk a little bit about the feet?
Yes, those are fabricated out of metal. I do the feet separate so that they can be support the bird. Sometimes I'll carve them out of wood, but I generally add the glass eyes in the metal feet. Good question. But I kind of show the process, kind of like a decoy, how you'd start out with a profile view. So that's again more about the process. Now my bird's a little bit more about the struggle and the emerging. I've done other things. I sculpt other wildlife, not just birds. And just having dinner, I saw those dolphins. That was incredible. But last time I was here, I actually got the kayak, and I saw birds out those little islands, and I couldn't turn around. Eventually, I turned around, and as I was coming out, I see this fin coming right towards me. And I don't know what kind of shark it was, but I heard you guys have tiger sharks. I'm not sure if I want to go kayaking again. It was really, inspirational. But to see, things like this is in the wild is really awe-inspiring. So when I do a commission, I will do a proposal. There's an osprey model, or maquette, we call a model, a maquette, French for model. And I'll give a collector different options. Okay, so he picked the one on the bottom right. You saw the emerging quail coming out. But I have the osprey I've got to make catching a fish coming out of the water, lifting the fish. And that's a miniature maquette. So I've got to figure out, the model helps me, that's an indirect process of carving. It helps me plan the piece, figure out how I'm going to make it, how much time is going to be involved, how I'm going to engineer it, because I design my pieces to come apart so they can be shipped and transported. I've done cubby rises of quail. In fact, let's see, I think that's the last one. Yeah, I was just in an article, it was called Quail Forever, and it's called A Legacy in Wood. It was written by Ryan Sparks, editor of Quail Forever. So I try to work with conservation groups to promote awareness. And it was a great article, and I just want to end with talking about the legacy, because it was a nice article talking about my work being a legacy, and I hope my heron can be a legacy here. But you know, you guys are a legacy, living on an island that, you know, coexisting with this much wildlife, and I just want to congratulate you and doing such a wonderful job and coexisting so harmoniously with nature. And that's very inspiring. Living in Atlanta, especially with, you know, urban sprawl and everything, and seeing things disappear, it's very, very inspiring. So I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, we could go, you know, back there and look at individual pieces, or we can just ask here.
Do you work on multiple pieces at once?
Yes, I worked on all of those palm fronds, or I call them palm fronds. Actually, they're palm boots.
Yeah.
But I did my research because I saw a website, and you can carve palm fronds from the palm date tree in California. And I talked to a fellow who'd been carving for like 70 years. And he knew everyone. As, oh, I know that person, and you know. And so palm fronds, Native Americans used to carve decoys out of, and then hunters would carve out of palm fronds. But muskrats like to eat the decoys, like to eat the palm fronds, so it didn't work out so well. So yes, I worked on all of them. I kind of at once, different stages, because I have the carving and the texturing, and the painting, and I want to look cohesive, kind of all flying in one direction.
Do you treat the boots or also the pieces of wood that you forage?
Yes, I didn't get into nearly much about the techniques. So the material itself has, you know, I dry it out. Right now they're still wet, and I only pick the ones that are not cracked. So I have used wood hardener. Actually, the fellow in California told me to use wood hardener. Because I heard another fellow using epoxy glue, but that stuff smells and toxic. And I don't like using too many materials because I try to be sustainable and non-toxic. So I use a good glue, an exterior glue, Type Bond 3, which is waterproof. I might seal it sometimes before I paint it, because you have to have a good sealed surface. But you can make the material harder itself by using that Type Bond glue or using wood hardener. And I mean, I have a whole host of materials I experimented with: JB Weld, fiberglass, Bondo. There are metal pens inside some of the pieces, like the heads going into the bodies. I've used wood sealer. Then it's covered with enamels, acrylics, and oils, both airbrush and hand brushed. And I have videos in my instructional videos how I do all that. So it's just experimenting, you know, and pushing the boundaries of art. I want to do something a little different, challenge myself. Doing this, I've been doing this for 40 years, all my life, basically, and it's my passion. I love it, and I just, you know, want to challenge myself, get better. So, good question. But I want my work to, you know, to stand the test of time. And I have done some outdoor monuments I've made out of bronze and marble. I've got a piece at a sculpture walk in North Carolina that's marble. It's in a monument, multiple monuments with other sculptors in my 20s. That's kind of how I got started. But I learned how to cast the metal myself, bronze, and did a monument of a big, larger than life size great horned owl, which is the mascot of Kennesaw State University. And that was right around the time of 2008 when I decided to go on sabbatical. I love the teaching, the good students, not so much some others, but I went on sabbatical and never came back because I had commissions and I just could explore nature. I had my own hours. Of course, the marketing, the business, that, I don't like that as much, but now I do the social media, and it's all about atomic habits. Whatever you want to do, it's about doing it again and again and again, right? So you got to just dedicate yourself to it. So I'm still passionate about it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.